In this demonstration, I will show 5 various features implemented in OpenGL and C++. The first of these features to mention is the skybox that the scene takes place in. A skybox is an easy way to represent something known as a cube map. Cube maps are entities that are cubic in nature, but also have 6 distinct textures for each face of the cube carefully stitched together. Cube maps are unique in that they are spatially indexed and the textures can be referenced with just a vector. This is particularly useful for things such as reflection and refraction. The rendering of a skybox is the same as if we are drawing a textured cube directly around the camera, but with some modifications to the depth parameters. Skyboxes also do not have any model transform and remove any translations that may exist within the camera view transform. Since our skybox and cubemap reference the same texture, it is easy to demonstrate that an object's reflections are that of the environment. This first model is a simple one in that the color of the surface strictly relies on the reflection to determine the color of the geometry. We can calculate the reflection vector by using the camera position and the vertex position, along with the surface normal at that position. The result is a vector that we can use to determine where on our cube map the reflection is pointing to, then applying that part of the texture to our vertex. This next model demonstrates refraction. Modeling refraction is similar, except we are computing a refraction vector. This vector is computed with the same information, but uses something called the index of refraction to determine the vector. This index of refraction is a constant that determines how light bends when it passes from one medium to another. As before, we now use this vector to look up what part of the texture to place onto the geometry. This model of refraction only uses a single instance of refraction, where in reality light would refract when it enters the object and also when it exits. But this representation is often suitable enough for many applications. This next model demonstrates a combination of both reflection and refraction within approximation of the Fresnel equations. These equations describe the transmittance and reflectance of light when it hits a medium. This is a more realistic representation, but it is still an approximation. Both the reflection and refraction vector are computed to look up where on the cube map they intersect. The final color on the geometry uses a mixture of both the reflection and refraction texture, where the ratio of each used is determined by the Fresnel equations. The refraction effect is obvious, but looking carefully onto this model, we can see the reflections of the environment faintly within our model. This final model is a demonstration of chromatic dispersion. Chromatic dispersion, or a chromatic aberration in photography, is the result of when light passes through a medium such as a prism and dispersing the various wavelengths. Chromatic dispersion creates a bit of a rainbow effect within this example. This is modeled in the exact same way as the Fresnel example, except we use a different index of refraction for each of the RGB color channels, thus giving us the imitation of light scattering through a prism. Once we calculate each channel's final color, we merge them back into the resultant color for the fragment.